Hey, welcome to Cartoon Brew's bi-weekly live stream. Today is November 29th. We hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving if you're watching us from the United States. My name is Amit Amidi. I'm the editor-in-chief of Cartoon Brew. I'm based in Los Angeles, and I am joined today by...
I'm Cole Delaney, the video producer at Cartoon Brew, and I'm in Dublin. And you know what? I forgot it was Thanksgiving, actually. Happy Thanksgiving, Amit.
Thank you. Yeah. I was living in Canada for a long time, and they have Thanksgiving on a different day. So it's like in early October. So we didn't really celebrate Thanksgiving there. And then when it happened, when the U.S. version of it happened while we were in Canada, we never acknowledged it because we were in Canada. So it's kind of nice to be back in the U.S. and celebrating Thanksgiving the way it should be
Mm.
celebrated. You guys do that in Ireland or no?
No, no, it's not part of our our thing at all. You know,
You guys
our
didn't have
Christmas is more
Indians and
like
Pilgrims.
I mean, we were the pilgrims, and oh, sorry, the Indians and the British were the pilgrims that came in. But no, we never had anything to be thankful for. You know, so just cold, miserable weather, and we try to ignore that as much as possible. But no, our Christmas, I would say, is closer to how you guys celebrate Thanksgiving. Like we have a very similar feast at Christmas as you guys would have at Thanksgiving, and with turkey and everything.
Oh wow, cool! I
Yeah.
didn't know you guys had turkey there. No, I didn't
We
know there
do.
were turkeys in Ireland. That's a new one for
There,
me.
I don't know where we get them. Honestly, I've never seen wild turkeys here. I don't know where we get them, and I don't know where it came from. It might have come over from America, to be honest.
Well, we've got. We're gonna jump right into this. We have a. We're gonna up front today. We have a guest, and it's
Hmm.
Maria Andriotti, and she is a stop motion artist and also works in production in the stop motion industry. And she is creating a documentary about Kent Melton, who unfortunately
Mm.
passed away earlier this year. Kent is a legend in the animation industry, but he's also not a very well known name. He created three dimensional maquettes for the Disney features in the 90s,
Hmm.
and then later did the same at Laika. But he created these maquettes ahead of time that then helped guide the work of the animators and showed the characters in three dimensional form. So without any further ado, let's introduce our guest, Maria Andriotti. Yes. Hi,
Hello.
Maria.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Did I say your last name correctly, or did I?
Yeah,
Uh,
surprisingly, perfectly.
very good.
What a
Lost
shock!
because of you, because of the world.
We should have checked. We had a little pre-check, and I forgot to ask actually how to pronounce your name. So I'm glad we did that one correctly. Uh, this is really exciting. Let's first of all, I got to point this out that you currently have a Kickstarter for the project, which is a documentary film about Kent. And I'm wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the project, or why did you decide to make a film about Kent?
Yeah, absolutely. So I met Kent when I started at Laika on the box trolls in 2011. And my first job on that film was taking photos of all of his sculpts and scaling them for the character lineup so that, like, we would start with drawings and then we would want to replace them with maquettes and then painted maquettes and then puppets as we kept making them so that finally we'd have a lineup of scaled puppets. So, anyway, I worked really closely with him throughout the whole time he was there and just really got to know him and we became really good friends. And I visited him in Missouri for 4th of July, visited his family. We went to lunch all the time. When Kent was at Leica, he was away from his family. They used to fly him out and he would stay in a hotel. So he would hang out with a lot of us and go to the movies and museums and things like that. So yeah, it was just really lovely getting to know him. And not only was he this like brilliant sculptor, but he was so funny and humble, and he played music and he painted, and so there were just all these other facets to him. So I just thought, wow, this guy is, um, he kind of reminds me of like that documentary about Wayne White, Beauty is Embarrassing. Just like, Wayne did the Pee Wee puppets, but then you don't know about his family life and his music and all of that. So it's kind of really similar, actually, really similar people, but artist. But yeah, so I basically just started talking to him on the phone a lot once we both left Portland. And in 2020, he let me know he was diagnosed. He was actually misdiagnosed. He thought he had Parkinson's at first, but he ended up having Lewy body dementia. So the last 4 years we spent just talking and talking, and he finally agreed to let me start this documentary. So I started recording our conversations and everything. And the last couple of years, we were really, really planning it with all the interviews and everything. And he was, really involved in the Kickstarter and making his Instagram and everything like that. So we really started this film together. I believe he started to see the value in leaving something behind, So yeah,
Mm.
that's sort of the journey of like our friendship to this movie. But unfortunately, we lost him this year, as you said, and I never made it over to Missouri to get our live action interviews. So I'm going to be using stop motion animation to do his interviews because I have over 4 hours of audio. So yeah, so his part will be in stop motion, and all the others will be in live action.
What is just because I don't know, what is Lewy body dementia? Does it affect um was he still like could he still speak? I mean, what is that?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, definitely affects your mind, body, everything. It's what Robin Williams had, and it essentially,
Oh,
like at the beginning, it wasn't awful. He wasn't able to sculpt, so he was painting more, and then like this past year, specifically last year, we weren't talking as much on the phone, and I know that like your brain starts to play tricks on you and you'll start seeing things, that may not be there, and thinking things are happening that might not be happening. So it just gets a little bit confusing, I think. And Kent loved telling stories. Like he's such a storyteller, and he'll go on for hours. And you could tell that on the phone that he was really excited to remember. And then once he couldn't remember a fact, he would get kind of frustrated. So I believe it just becomes very frustrating because it
Mm.
happens to the smartest, most talented people, and then all of a sudden they just find themselves unable to basically function, and it's a slow, seemingly slow process, and then a really quick one. So
wow.
in my very small experience.
Mm.
Cool.
My main question is, why a documentary when you sat down to collect all this stuff? Why tell the story through a visual medium, right? Because there's plenty in there for something like a book or memoir or something like that. I'm just curious as to why. Is it because of the interview aspect of it, or do you think that perhaps the way that he tells stories is best through? Thanks a
Sorry,
million. Wow,
I
thanks.
apologize.
This is a good question that you've just absolutely derailed. Is it because it was his birthday? Is that no? I'm just curious as to why. Like, is it? Is
I was testing something out. I didn't think it was gonna be live. I apologize for that.
This is welcome aboard, Maria. Welcome
No, I loved
aboard.
it.
This
I
is
got it. That's a really,
yeah.
really great question. I have a great answer.
Thank you. Now is the time for the sound effect of
The,
me. Thank you.
the reason to film this and not just make a lovely big book is because what I want everyone to know is Kent as a person. I think that people might know Kent as a sculptor and might know his work, but being with him was the true experience that I want to capture. And um, like the fact that he was standing there sculpting was just half of it. He was telling you jokes, he was telling you about his family, he was telling you about past stories just the whole time. And he truly believed that what everybody was doing was like, it's not that he didn't believe his was really good, it's that he thought yours was also really good and theirs was really good. And that belief that if an artist is giving it their all, that like you can see that passion in the artwork, and that spread very widely. Like there were PAs at Laika who would come up to Kent and just kind of fawn over his work, and he would say like, well, there's no time like the present, let me show you how to do it. And he would stand there for 3 hours with them and show them how to do what he was doing, and they would walk away knowing how to do it. And those are the kind of stories I want to tell, because I feel like
Mm,
at least in my experience as a puppet maker, I've run into a lot of like secrecy. I've run into a lot of people that want to not share information, maybe because it's such a niche thing, and it's like, oh, if you know it, then you'll get the job or whatever. But Kent didn't think that way at all, and he was very happy to have everybody know what he knows. And he just, I don't know, I think that's really important. And it's a whole other aspect to the film that isn't just about his art, it's more how he affected others, which I don't think can be found in a book necessarily.
That's great.
I also think as well what you're talking about there is like this kind of sense of authentic inspiration, right? And
Exactly.
I have
Yeah.
experienced it in my life before. Whenever I talk to someone like Glenn Keane or something, the way they're just so excited to share the craft and the love of what they do, um, actually elevates everyone else around them. It kind of brings you up to a level that you're not really aware of being at that before. I think the reason why I wanted to ask you about the filmmaking is when, because you were working in Laika, you
Yeah.
were obviously having conversations with him, but could you tell me about the moment where you're just like, someone needs to capture this stuff?
Yeah, honestly, I had been sort of joking about it. Like I think we left Leica in 2016.
Mm.
And then there was a period of a few years before he got sick that we would just talk on the phone a lot. And almost every time we talked, I was like, Kent, we got to make him, we got to do something about this. Like, we just talked for 2 hours and I was the only one that heard all that, you know? And so it kind of started as a joke. And then I think he drove down here in 20, I think it was 2019, because by 2020, we maybe a little earlier, but he told me he was sick. And that's when I felt sort of that ticking clock, of like, okay, well, now there's a real deadline in a way, not to phrase it like that, but an unknown deadline, but it felt more real as far as like, okay, I really should consider this as a real possibility. And then I talked with him on the phone a few more times to convince him, because the thing is, he never thought that anyone would want to watch it. He'd be like, oh, who'd want to watch a movie about me? And that was sort of his attitude. But I think the more we were speaking about it and the more he was telling all these stories, he was realizing that, okay, it would actually be good if you captured this, because it's a lot and it was all in his head. So I think, yeah, I think him getting sick was a big like realization for us both of like, let's take this joke seriously. Yeah.
Are we having some sound issues? I'm hearing some feedback on the sound, or is everybody okay?
I don't hear anything. Yeah, but you, Maria.
No, is everybody good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of feedback, so I don't know if any watchers can tell us if they're hearing any sound feedback or not. But
I hear a little bit actually. My hearing's bad, but I hear it's a little fuzzy.
yeah, okay. Well, we'll just go with it. So, one of the reasons I have this image up here right here is because the first time I learned about Kent's work was in the Disney Art of Books, like back in the in the 90s. He was such a consequential figure
Yeah.
in design, not necessarily in designing the characters, but in kind of visualizing them and kind of making them real for the animators. He touched basically like every Disney film during that Renaissance period that they had, the Disney Renaissance that we know in the 90s, whether it was Aladdin or, Lion King, on and on, Tarzan, all of those films. I'm curious if you discussed, like that, what part, like what kind of feelings did he have about his Disney career versus later on when he left and went to Laika? Like, how did he evolve as an artist? And did you talk about that at all, like about his early Disney? Because I'm sure, we're all kind of in the same age where we grew up with a lot of those films, and you know, he was such a key figure in those films.
Yeah, we definitely talked about these a lot. So, um, I think Kent Kent loved what he did. He loved sculpting. He loved translating characters into physical, bringing them to life. And it's funny, a lot of the directors that I have spoken with who have worked with him have credited him a small bit for the character design because he enhanced so much when he was sculpting that it did change the character for the animators. So, and they have said there is a difference between the CG sculpts that they get now. I think Ron and John even said they didn't get a CG sculpt for Frozen until like 2 weeks before the movie was over, or not Frozen, the other one. So I think that was funny that that they were just saying that Moana, that they were just saying that Kent used to do it at the beginning of the movie, and now they get them at the end, which is like defeats the purpose. And I think that was funny. But no, he essentially he started at Hanna-Barbera and did some stuff for Warner, and then I believe he got hired at Disney via a child's birthday party because he made a cake or a sculpt or something for someone at Disney's kid, and they saw it and they were like, "Oh, we need someone to sculpt the Cave of Wonders. It's our first thing we have to do in CG." And so they hired him for that, and they were like, "Oh, can you do the genie? Oh, that's really good. Can you do the other characters?" And it just was very sort of casual at the beginning. And then because of the success of that, he was hired for all the others. Um, and he
Mm.
definitely had favorites and ones that weren't his favorite, which I won't say here, um, but there was definitely an ebb and flow. And one film actually, he, I think it was, I think I've heard all the stories that piece together that he got some of his copies of his sculpts on some of the films, but not all, because Disney would keep them. And then I think the Rocketeer was the breaking point for him. He didn't get to keep a copy of the helmet, and so he put a clause in his contract to keep a copy of every single maquette. I think from Hunchback on, and then all the previous movies. So he ended up having all of them in his house, which was huge, and nobody
Wow.
ever had done that. So it definitely, I'm telling a lot of random stories, but it was definitely a job to him, but in a very lovely way. And I know that at first his family was here in LA, but then they had to go back to Missouri because they had kids. And so he was away from his family pretty much all the time. And I know that that took its toll, and he couldn't probably see it for the amazing like job that it was 24/7 because he really missed them. And then when I was at Laika with him, that was the case as well. I know he seemed a lot more excited to work on those character designs just because of how original they were.
Mm.
And I know he really liked to play with proportions. He really loved The Incredibles because of the different proportions of those characters. So, and Laika was really similar. And Disney has amazing character design as well, but they're a little bit more like humanly proportionate. So I think that was more fun for him, just like the other mother and things like that. And so yeah, he seemed to have a little bit more like exploratory fun at Laika, in my opinion. But I know he loved his time at Disney, and he loves all those guys. He has so many stories. You guys will hear so many of them.
Let's talk a little bit about the documentary itself. You
Yeah.
have you're going to be like right here. You're talking about the people that you're going to interview for the
Yes.
film. All these people worked with Kent, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
actually had an event this past weekend at CTNX. We had a celebration of life for Kent and a panel with, we had some of these guys. Shannon Tyndall was our moderator, and we had Toby Froud, Ron Clements, and John Musker. And we did a little pre-interview on the panel. It was really lovely to have everybody together. And I think it really showed me for the first time that Kent had like such separate lives, because the like all these people know different parts of him, and he has like a whole other life in Missouri where they think he's just a musician, not, and they don't even say Disney over there. So it's so funny to have everyone together. That was the first time we had like his wife Martha and his daughter Nellie were present, and it's just really great to bring everybody together. I don't know if they had met before. So
Very cool. Did
yeah.
did he? Just out of curiosity, did he work with Brad Bird, or was what did he work on with Brad? Because Brad
Yeah,
wasn't
he worked
Disney,
on the Iron Giant and the Incredibles actually.
really.
So yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah,
That's new
I'll
to
send you
me.
pics.
I don't believe you. No, I actually didn't know that he'd worked on those films. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really good photo of all the incredible sculpts that I'll share with you. It's really beautiful.
Very cool. Typically, when he would make a sculpt, like how did that process work? So, like, would he make one sculpt, and would they be replicated, or would he like how would they be replicated, like when they were at Disney and stuff?
Yeah, I honestly I didn't I'm not positive of the process at Disney, but I do believe that it would be similar to Leica. I have shout out to Doug Hild, who's not on this list, but he was Kent's kind of right-hand man in replicating all the maquettes, and he's gonna be interviewed as well. But so I think yeah, same thing, like they would cast a bunch, and the way we did it at Leica was we would cast a lot to do the paint tests. So then we'd have a lot of painted maquettes, and then based off of that, they would scan them in to make the faces or copy them over to make the puppets. So I'm assuming it was similar at Disney, but Ron said that he had to have his Little Mermaid maquettes painted after the fact. So I'm actually not sure if they painted them. I'll have to do some research on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, any maquettes I've ever seen from Disney, they never really do seem painted. It's more for the form and the flow of the 3D shape of the character itself. But I don't know. It's just, again, same as you, Amita. I just seen these in art of books, so I don't know what stage that I've seen these.
Yeah.
Um,
All of Kent's were gray until I mean, he gave me Esmeralda. Shout out. I have one. And
hey,
she's
no
not
way.
painted. So, yeah, I don't think any of them were painted, but I do think they were molded and casted. Yeah.
What a talent to be able to, represent, because there's very distinct character designs across all these movies, right? But to be able to take that and turn it in space, but also to apply character in that as well, it's just that's an insane amount of talent. Like, and I think in the trailer, because you've got a little trailer attached to the Kickstarter there,
Yeah.
it talks about how he could just stand there for hours just sculpting, right? Is that the
Yeah.
kind of time you would sit and talk to him outside of the phone calls originally, or
Yeah.
how did that?
Absolutely. Yes. He was essentially his mindset was like the faster I get this done, the faster I can go back to my muses back in
Mm,
Missouri. So I believe he would honestly just stand there until it was finished. And like if you got there at 6 a.m. at Leica, he was there, and if you were there till 10 p.m., he was there because he just
wow.
wanted it done, and he'd have these guys done in a couple of days. So he was so fast. And then like the next morning we'd have the review and they would give some notes maybe, and then he would just have it right done right then and start the next one. So he was just so fast and always standing there, and he couldn't talk for hours while he's sculpting. He never wavered. So yeah, definitely that's his little desk at Leica is where our friendship formed.
That's
Mm,
interesting that he could work too. He could speak too while he was talking, because a lot of animators, like, they'll be like, "Well, I can't talk while I'm animating," but his craft allowed him to speak and work at the same time. So that's an interesting kind of difference, I guess, between animators and sculptors, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was always laughing, always cracking jokes.
I want to ask you
and
about. Sorry, go ahead. Cool.
yeah, I'll get in before you go. These are the calls here in the trailer, right? These are the calls that you guys had together, right? So they
Yeah,
were video calls.
yeah, that was I would say those are from 2021
Mhm.
to 2022, and that's about we stopped doing videos at the beginning of 22.
Okay, yeah, I got you. It's amazing to see just the kind of the um breadth of I just think over the whole thing, just how many projects this man has touched is insane, really and truly. And shaped as well. Character's a big part of this.
Yeah, I have a list of his maquettes, and it's over 500 that he's done in his life between the films and the WDCC collection. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
look at them here.
I so
Wow.
want to talk a little bit about the documentary itself. You had mentioned it's going to be a little bit mixed media, but is there going to be actual stop motion in it?
Yeah, definitely. So, Kent sculpted a self-portrait of himself. I actually have one. We're using them on the Kickstarter as an
Oh
incentive.
wow!
So that's how it looks.
Can you bring that
Um,
closer? Let's bring that a little
yeah,
closer so we can take a
I
look.
don't want to.
Give
There you
it, give her the full screen, Amid.
Oh wow,
Oh,
very
Yeah,
that's
cool.
it.
there
Ta-da.
you go. That's so
Sorry, I'm
cool. Hello.
terrible at it's going backwards. So it's gonna be the real one is holding a sculpting tool, and it will be when people get it. But yeah, we had these replicated. There's 10 of them. This is a self-portrait sculpture that Kent did of himself. I believe for a Pixar art show. There we go. Sorry, I'm so stupid. Um, and
But
we're gonna use this as a design to make the stop motion puppet of him.
Mm,
And we're gonna build sets that are replications of his studio that he used to have in Missouri, where he used to work because he worked a lot from home as well. And yeah, we'll shoot his interviews as if he's there getting interviewed. So that'll be probably a 25 to 30-minute stop motion shoot, which is
wow.
essentially the beginning that we need funded. So if we get the first um, goal or whatever, this will be the first bit that we want to do.
That's hugely ambitious. 20, 30 minutes of stop motion animation.
I know. Yeah, I'm banking on the fact that it's like a lot of character. I mean, he'll be sitting a lot, so it's kind of going to be like he's interviewing and not a ton of action. There'll definitely be parts where he's sculpting and walking around and showing you stuff, but a lot of it's going to just be like pretending we're doing interviews. So,
Yeah, he's not
yeah.
gonna be flying or anything.
Correct. Yeah. Not super ambitious, like two sets
he's
of
just
motion, two sets of
fighting off other sculptors while he's talking.
maybe at the end. Yeah, spoiler.
Yeah.
Fighting executives. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very
Wow.
cool. Very cool. Yeah, so this, I mean, this is a wonderful project, and we wanted to highlight it. So, what are we missing? Is there anything people should know about the Kickstarter or about the project that we've left out at this point?
You guys have been amazing. I think just to know that there's a very small group of people that really love Kent and we really want to make it, and we're gonna just give it our all, and it's not it's not for us, it's for him and everyone else who knew him and didn't know him. So I think it's just gonna be sharing this website for a month and seeing if all our Instagram followers and all that, can help just a tiny bit. I think it's about a lot of people helping out a very small amount, and it'll be fine. And
Well,
yeah, I think if we get the first bit done, we can hopefully get the finishing funds to get the rest and put it on a streaming service and into some festivals and stuff. So
let me ask a question. Is there any institutional support behind it in terms of the studios that you worked at Laika or Disney? Are they going to be involved in the film in any way?
I've definitely already reached out to them and they're in full support. They're going to help me get footage that some of it I shot myself when I was at Leica, which is fun. But yeah, definitely in touch with the archives, and obviously all the
Mm.
interviewees are on board already. We've already agreed. So yeah, I think I'm in the process right now. December's my big month of like, let's share this thing, let's get everybody posting and talking about it. And yeah, I am hoping that once we have a little bit done, that someone will want to pick it up and show it. Yeah.
Mm. I just have two questions. Sorry. The It's currently called the Untitled Kent Melton documentary.
Yeah.
Is that the plan to remain as such, or are you just waiting to find the name?
I have a list of about 10 like little quotes and things that I love, and it's so difficult to
Mhm.
narrow it down. And I also wanted just for this portion for it to be very obvious what we're doing. And I didn't want like a fun phrase, to be the title of the Kickstarter essentially. But yeah, there's quite a few things that he has said that I've jotted down that I believe will be a really lovely title for this. So it won't be called that.
Okay. And my second question, this feel free not to answer this, by the way. This I'm curious about how you're approaching the story or tone of this documentary, because I mean, obviously, someone like Kent is very well loved and respected, and you've got a very deeply personal relationship with him, which means that oftentimes going into something like this, it can be hard to pull the story outside of your own perspective, right? And I'm curious, are you approaching it specifically from just a history, start to finish point of view, or is it like, have you found a story within this, or is that something you feel will emerge as the stories are being told?
Oh my gosh, I love this. Yeah, no, it's emerging every day. Every time that I talk to someone, I am learning new things and my perspective changes. My own perspective is definitely going to be in this film, but this film is a collaboration of everybody who knew him, and it's definitely going to have the educational, aspect of it. Of yes, he did all these things. Look at these amazing pieces of art. But I'm interviewing his friends, his family, his coworkers, sculptors who are inspired by him who have never met him, fans who have 40 sculpts of his in their house who have never met him. So
Mm,
this film is going to span pretty much everybody that this guy touched without realizing. And that's what I believe is the key is like look
mm,
at how many artists you can affect without even knowing it, and while remaining so humble and so like I don't want to say nonchalant, but just so like chill about everything. He believed in everybody that they could do whatever they wanted. And
mm,
it's like you didn't just walk away with like, okay, I know how he did that. You walked away going, I can now do that. I fully believe I can do
mm,
that because he said I could. And I think this film is going to end up being a lot of stories like that. And I think that that
mm,
message is almost more important today than any like fact about a movie. So that's sort of the vibe I'm going for is purposely get everybody else's perspectives, not just mine,
mm.
and bring them together into this big message of kind of like anyone can cook type message from Ratatouille. Like I just
I
feel like
love
it's
that.
it's kind of a similar, just not like a good feeling, but yeah,
Mm.
like there is a good feeling there of sharing and inspiring others. So I think that's the point of it.
I actually have one more question then, and
Yeah.
then and I've seen there's a comment as well. You talked about how um, you can be unaware of people being touched by the work that you do. Again, feel free not to answer this. Do you think Kent was aware of that, and would it have mattered to him, even if he was?
It definitely mattered. He was definitely very touched when people reached out,
Mhm.
and I think it was almost a mixture of people being intimidated by him and not feeling like they could get so close or whatever, because he would say to me like, "Oh, everyone always says they want to come to Missouri, but they never do." And that's why I ended up saying, "Okay, I'll come, here I come." And so that was really eye-opening of like, okay, I don't know if people know that he's available for friendship,
Mm,
or whatever. So yeah, I do think there was a disconnect of like him being unaware of just how big, because when we started this Instagram for him in 2021, we got all these messages from all over the world, and people were in other countries, Kent, you really inspired me. And he was like, wow, that's amazing. He really didn't know. So
mm,
I think, yeah, there's that that disconnect of just distance, but also his humility. He did care though. He really loved it, and like he wouldn't let you
mm.
know he cared, but he cared.
Yeah. We've got a comment from Razult Zarin here. He says, when I joined SPA Studios, Spa Studios, watching Kent Melton sculptures behind the window of Sergio Pablos's room was my normal daily fun, I think. And then straight in again, I will never forget the backstage of the making of the sculpture of Long John Silver. It gave me a strange motivation. I would look at it several times a day. That's beautiful, isn't it? So
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
yeah,
Finding inspiration in art like that.
And
that
Sergio
is.
Pablos's, that's Sergio Pablos's studio in Madrid. So,
Studio.
that's in
Yeah.
Spain. So, he's
Hmm.
touching people, his work was reaching globally, as did the films that he worked on. So, he was
Mm.
very cool. Well, On that note, uh, Maria, I want to thank you so much for joining us. This is a fantastic project, and we, really hope it moves forward. That you're able to find the funding, and that this is made, because I think it's going to inspire a lot of people. So, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you both
today.
so much. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. You ask amazing questions, and thank you both. You're both great.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're gonna move on, so we'll say goodbye to Maria.
Bye, Maria.
and
Goodbye.
take care.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. I'm still, so we've had a few guests on so far on the live stream, but then we've been moving to a more of a discussion news format. But we are again moving to the guest format. So this is bi-weekly now, and we're not going to have a guest every single time, but we're definitely going to be having a lot more guests in the future coming up in 2025. We've already got a number of really cool people booked for 2025. So
Including, just an announcement, me. I'll be there. Sorry. Go on.
Well, without you, there's no show. So I hope you're there.
That's debatable.
If it's just me, it's going to go downhill really fast.
And with me, we're already at the bottom. So it's already good. Yeah, I think guests add a great flavor, because it's nice to talk to people about what they're doing and what's going on in the world up there, not just us in our lofty cloud wondering what's happening. Actually finding out from the mouths of people, and like Maria there is so lovely and honest about what she's doing. And a story like that, listen, I'm a sucker for inspiration. Inspiration is what my podcast Animators Breakfast is all about. So when you can kind of connect to someone authentically, I mean, that's manna from heaven. Essentially, you're giving fuel to someone's passion or purpose, and I think repeating that in a positive way is so important. So for someone like Kent to exist, to have that ability just through the works that he's created to continuously inspire people, it's like Michelangelo's David or something. You go and look at it and it gives you inspiration, same as these maquettes.
Yeah.
As Rasool has pointed out in the comments.
And I'll say, I mean, this is something that would be absolutely perfect for Disney Plus. They, any streamer should pick this up. I'd love to see like somebody like Netflix pick this up. I mean, they have so many documentaries about, all their documentaries. The stuff that works. It's usually about murder and true crime, and they have.
And we have all that in this story.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but I'm saying, like, they why not have more stuff about artists and inspiration and creative output. Speaking of, I saw a great documentary this week. I'm just going to plug it. It's called The World According to Allie Willis, and she was just this fantastically. She was a music writer, and she's written a lot of. She wrote the Friends theme song. She wrote September for Earth, Wind, and Fire and Boogie Wonderland. I mean, she's been connected to so many amazing songs. But more than that, it was who she was as a person. She was just kind of this outlier character who had this home in Los Angeles, and she threw like the most amazing art parties, and she was an artist. I actually have earlier this year I bought one of her pieces at a flea market. So I've like this huge Allie Willis mechanical piece that you plug into the wall, and she was she was like best friends with Pee Wee Herman. And this documentary is all about that. And there's an animation connection because her partner was Prudence Fenton, who was the animation producer on Pee Wee's Playhouse and also the animation producer on Liquid Television, the groundbreaking MTV show. So she had this kind of animation connection, though I don't believe she ever worked in animation. Anyway, this documentary just came out this week. It's called The World According to Allie Willis, and it is absolutely inspirational if you're if you need like just the whole film kind of makes you feel like you go into her world. She passed away a couple years ago, and you kind of go
Mm.
into her world, and you're just so creatively inspired. And we need more of these kind of films, especially in this kind of world that we're in today. We don't need more
Mm.
like documentaries about who killed who. We need stuff that kind of shows this other side of humanity, and I just wanted to put that out there because I really loved that film.
Wow. And I agree because it's we wouldn't know nearly as much as we do about Hayao Miyazaki without those behind the scenes documentaries that they have. This guy now has spent I don't know how many years just following him around with a camera and periodically releases this stuff. But it shows, like, and that's why I was really curious to ask Maria about what angle she's coming in at, because they're not really afraid to show those kind of grumpy moments, to give a better view of what the person looks like in those Miyazaki documentaries, because he goes off on people. There's that famous scene of him turning down those AI guys, and just
He was ahead of the
calling what
curve
they
too.
do.
That
Yeah,
was
he was
before
way ahead
AI.
of it, calling it an insult to life itself, and that's why I like the kind of rawness of just presenting the story, just presenting it, and saying, look at this person's life who inspired so many people, and look at what they did, and who inspired them, and all this. It's just it's a cycle. It's a cycle of positivity,
Yeah.
inspiration, really.
And like I'm a biographer myself. I've been working on this
Hmm.
biography of Ward Kimball for a long time, and
Do
when I
you
saw
do you consider yourself a biographer if it's not published? Is that sorry?
the book's done. It's just it's going to get
Yeah.
out next year, but no, I mean I wrote this whole
Mm,
biography, and I can say like when you have a biography, you start with an interesting subject, and you're like you have all
yes.
these kind of preconceived notions of who this person was, but like Maria was saying, each person you talk to, and for me, a lot of the people were dead, but I did speak to a lot of people that worked with him, but also looked at a lot of other interviews with other people. You
Mm,
let the material tell you who that person was, right? Yeah, and you come up with it. Like my initial idea of doing that biography about Ward Kimball, like I had this idea of who he was, and the end result is something completely different, and it's like
mm,
he was a very different person once you actually kind of peel away the layers and you see that this person was much more complex, much more interesting than this kind of overview figure that you had in your head at the beginning of a project. So that's what a good
mhm,
biographer, good documentarian, that's what anybody does is you let the material tell the story. You don't you don't
mm.
you don't come into it with like I'm going to show this person as this. That this evolves over time. So
Yeah. It's that sense of curiosity, right? Because that'll drive you forward. If you're bringing preconceived attempts to now, look, I've not written a biography or gone into as depth, but anytime I do a video essay, I always find the story in the research that I've done, right? That's basically what you're saying. I can map it out and lay it all out, and then patterns start to emerge for me, and I can build on those kind of sections or patterns, which is different to a documentary or, sorry, a biography. But um, it becomes this thing of, how can I authentically present this the best way possible? But also, I want to do it in a way that's both honest but interesting, right? I don't know if you feel like that with your book. I mean, it was it, and not to turn this into about an interview about what you've written, but is it? How do you approach something like that? Is it? When you tell the story, are you saying, actually, this was a really crucial point, or here was a really interesting thing that I think I should highlight? Does that question make sense?
no.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure I understood it, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do. Yeah.
the story tells itself, right? Like that was one of the
Mm.
surprising things to me is like how do you fill up a book, right? And it just
Yeah.
I don't know if it kind of just fills itself up, right? Like this book is now like 500 pages, over 500 pages, and I didn't expect
Mm.
that was going to be 500 pages, but there's so much that happens, and I didn't choose, like, like the story kind
Yeah.
of tells itself, like, oh, this year, this is how the story moved, this is how his life moved forward, this is his crisis point, and this is how he resolved that, and then this is the next crisis point. But I don't have to do much
Mm.
work. The story is telling itself, if you're willing to do if you're willing to actually dig into the material. Like there was
Mm.
another biography of him that came out, and yeah, I don't want to talk about that one,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it kind of just went over. It felt like a summary of everything that we already knew about him, rather than actually revealing who the person was. So I think that just
Yeah.
if you're gonna do a biography, if you're gonna do any kind of a video essay, anything, you better be passionate about that subject, because if you're not going to learn the whole story, right? You have to
Mm.
actually really be into the subject, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with that subject. So anyway, we should move on. We're going to do a very rapid kind of just look at the a few news items this week, and then kind of wrap this up. But I just want to go quickly.
Wrap this
Trying
up.
to do. I'm using
Yeah,
this
you do it. Well, I just say one last
Zoom.
point on what you were talking about there
Sure.
while you set this up. I think for me, it's important not to get hagiographic about things, right? Not to build someone up in a saintly sense of look how perfect they are. And
Mm-hmm.
you find these a lot in kind of Walt Disney documentaries and stuff like that. It's just like, look how amazing everything is. And nothing bad happened except for this bad thing that could have derailed their life work, but it didn't because they're brilliant, that kind of way. Like getting into the weeds of someone, I think, is really important as well.
Yeah, well, I mean that's there's different kinds of those are dishonest, right? Like it's
Yes,
not
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
those are commercial products, designed
Mm.
to burnish someone's image, right? But they're
Mhm.
not truthful accounts of, and I understand why they're made, because they're made to build up legacy, and legacy equals profit in capitalism. So there's a purpose to those, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but that's not what a real biographer does, right? That's not what
Mhm.
anybody who's really interested in the subject does. Um, Speaking of capitalism and corporate profit, we got we had a whole
Mm.
segment about this last time, about Moana opening, but we should
Mhm.
acknowledge it now, because it actually did open on Wednesday in theaters. And Moana 2, it's been, we've already spoken about the history of it and everything. It was a direct to streaming project for Disney
Mhm.
Plus, and they retooled it as a feature film. So we already kind of know that, but reviews aren't great. But the film is going to be one of Disney's. Right now it's looking to be their largest opening ever for an animated film. This is Moana 2 right now. So
Wow.
it's looking, I don't know what the latest numbers are. Let's see. It grossed 28 million on Thanksgiving Day. I
Wow.
think it's uh, let's see what the numbers are. I think it's 175 million. Yeah, Disney is maintaining a 175 million dollar forecast over 5 days for the film.
Wow.
And also internationally, it is looking to be 110 million through Thursday. So this film is going to open with probably over 300 million on its opening weekend. It's a huge success for Disney Animation, and so congratulations to if you worked on this film. I
Yeah.
hope there's a
Yeah.
bonus behind it for this opening. I don't know if they give bonuses at Disney like they do at Pixar,
Mm.
but certainly it's everyone deserves a bonus for working on this film. But also I think this is going to be a huge discussion point for us in the
Mhm.
future, because this is the first film that was made in part at Disney's Vancouver Animation Studio, which
Mhm.
is not unionized, which is certainly a lower cost operation than their iconic studio in Burbank. And I think that executives will certainly take all the wrong lessons from this,
I was about
which
to
is
say,
that
yeah.
which is that we don't need to be spending as much on our feature films because our most successful film of all time is made at a lower cost than any of our previous films. Having said that, they should also keep in mind that it's based off of a film that was made at the Burbank studio in
Hmm.
2016, and that film was done in the traditional pipeline. And the reason that people are going to Moana 2 is because of the first Moana. If the first Moana didn't
Yes.
exist,
Yeah.
but that I don't think anyone's gonna take that lesson away. But certainly,
But their next bank of films are all sequels, aren't they? I mean, like
that's true. But they're not made in
yeah.
Vancouver though. That's the big
Hmm.
distinction, is that this film was
Hmm.
made at a much lower cost than,
Yes.
say,
Yeah.
Zootopia 2. And I don't know what the production structure is on Zootopia 2. Who knows if they're farming stuff out to the Vancouver studio now, but it's certainly driven by the Burbank studio. This film had a unique kind of situation where it started in Vancouver, so I think more of it was done up there than typical. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. But anyway, it's a huge success, and uh, you know, pretty poor reviews, but reviews don't matter. I mean, this is a film that, you know, in the IP world that we live in, if the characters are popular, you know,
Mm.
doesn't really matter if the critics don't like it. So
Yeah, that's true. And I wonder, I'd be very curious to see its second or third week then, based on, and because that seems to be when reviews kick in a bit, the rewatchability of a film, right? But obviously the opening is doing very well. I wonder how quickly they'll spin it across to Disney Plus then,
yeah. Yeah, we shouldn't
you know?
forget that. I mean, the first film is one of the most viewed films ever on streaming. Last year, it was the most
Mhm.
viewed film on streaming, but also for 4 years in a row, it's been like in the top four for streamed films. So uh, there's certainly an incentive to. I don't know if there's an incentive to put Moana 2 immediately onto streaming, but streaming played a huge role, I believe,
Huge.
in the
Mhm.
success of this sequel. So
And there's a lot of talk as this came out around the live action because there were some leaked images of the set, right?
yeah.
Of Dwayne Johnson dressed up as Maui, and it all kind of fell in around this week as well. So there was like double news that kind of helped catapult both forward.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, it's crazy that they're putting out again. They're putting out Moana 1 as live action like less than 2 years after putting out Moana 2. It's a really uh, bizarre
Mm.
situation. I don't think it would have been as bizarre if this Moana had been a streaming series, but now it kind of doesn't make sense. And I wonder if they're rethinking that Moana live action film now, like how they're gonna, present that story, because it really doesn't make sense to put Moana 1 into live action again. So
Mm.
we'll
Mm.
find out. Um, and I want to briefly mention this, that Flow, which is one of the best independent animated features this year. It
Mhm.
is opening in hundreds of theaters starting December 6th, I believe. Let's.
Yeah.
I don't want to give the wrong date there, but
Yeah.
uh,
December 6th.
yeah,
Yeah.
December 6th. Yeah. And I think what their intention is, they obviously opened last week in limited release in LA and New York, but they did not want to go up against Moana this weekend. So
Mm.
I think
Mhm.
they're putting trailers for Flow in front of a lot of the Moana screenings. But yeah, so
Ah.
to kind of build some buzz for it. But this is a film that, it's like Memoir of a Snail, also opened really strong in limited release. And then when they expanded it to hundreds of theaters, it instantly, there's no marketing budget behind it. People don't know it exists. So
Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
few core markets, no one's going to go see the film. And I hope the same does not happen to Flow. but
Mhm.
without a marketing budget, there's no flow billboards in LA. Not that I've seen. So this is a
Yeah.
film that it's really word of mouth, and
Mm.
that's why we're talking about it, because I hope people go see it. So yeah.
Yeah. I've not seen Flow yet. I actually would love to go see it. I'm not sure if it gets a release here or anything, but I'd love to see it. And and just trying to get films out, um, and distributors. Like, I was talking to Usman about the Glassworker recently, and finding a distributor for them is quite difficult. It's because it's, well, like what the market's like and everything, and it's a very strong time of year with so many things coming out. But something like Flow, which won, it didn't win. What did it win at NSC? It swept the board, anyways.
Yeah, it's won like
Um,
4 awards: audience award and
yes,
a jury prize and some other prizes as well.
yeah. And people are astounded by the film. Anyone that I've talked to that's seen it, or any kind of reactions online, it really, really astounded by it. So the film itself will do a good job if people see it, but marketing for it, obviously, there's no marketing budgets, like you were saying, for this kind of stuff. So I hope that it does well when it does come out, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I'm actually really curious to see, because this is an
Mhm.
independent film, but unlike
Yeah.
Memoir of a Snail or some of the other independent films, it is CG, and I wonder
Mhm.
if CG will if parents see it, they'll be more convinced that, oh, this is a kind of a conventional looking CG film. Maybe we should take our kids to it.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think people are going to be surprised. Whoever goes to see this film,
Yeah.
they're not going to expect what they're going to see, and
Mm.
that's so getting people into the theater is the big thing. But I think if enough people go see it, they're all going to be surprised. They're all going to recommend it, and it could do.
Mhm.
It could be a sleeper hit, or it could follow the path of most other independent animated films, and
Mhm.
and barely make a dent. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Well,
had a
an Adam
discussion.
Elliott film. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just, well, anyone that goes to see an Adam Elliott film and thinks they could bring their kids along is not a not the wisest of choices.
Well, it's
But
an
sorry, go
R-rated
on.
film. The new one's an R-rated
Yeah,
in the
I
U.S.
know.
And
Yeah.
I didn't actually think it was an R film. I guess it had elements in it that would make it R, but the effect is not R. But
Mhm.
it's certainly a depressing film. Like, if you're a kid, you would want to you would not want to watch that whole film.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, also, if you remember a few weeks ago, we had a discussion. People can go back. We had a discussion about the Oscar contenders for animated
Mm.
feature. So the Academy put out the list of qualified films this year, and this year 31 films made it, which is,
Mhm.
I believe, not a record, but it's right up there, close. What did we talk about where it ranks? Let me see. Huh.
Too shy of 33.
There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah. So it's almost a record. But looking at this list now, there are certainly a few surprises on there. For example, Mars Express is on there, which
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
a really interesting film. It's just
Yeah.
it came out, I believe, earlier this year, maybe last year in Europe, and
Mm.
I didn't expect to see that on there. Look Back, people say, is an amazing film. It's a G Kids release, and it's a very short
Mm.
film. I haven't seen that yet, but I will be looking at that soon. There's certainly a lot of interesting films on the list that we did not discuss. Kensuke's
Mm.
Kingdom is on there.
Yeah.
Um,
It's Sirocco and the Kingdom of the Winds, you
yeah,
know?
that's Benoit Chou's film, and
Yeah.
he is a
Great film.
fantastic director.
Mhm.
Um, what else? Living Large, which is a stop motion film from Eastern Europe. I'm actually
Mhm.
seeing that tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to
Oh,
that. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting films on
it's
here.
it's a very strong year. It's very strong.
Some people said that this year's really weak, and I'm looking at the list, and I think it's actually one of the strongest years for that I've
It's
seen in a while. And I'm really surprised that people are like, it's not a good year for animation. Like you look at this list,
it's
Glassworker,
insanely good. Yeah, it's
is
insanely good. You saw that Christmas, didn't you? You said it
I
was
did.
a
I
good
did.
film. Yeah.
I did, and I don't think that's like that's even not I don't think it's being pushed as hard as some of the other Netflix films are being
Mm,
pushed. But I thought that was a really good film, and
yeah.
I actually I'm not entirely sure it's a really good film. I want to watch it a second time, but I actually my first impression of it was that I really enjoyed
Mm.
that film, and so yeah, there's just so much good stuff. Sultana's
There's so much.
Dream.
I don't know why people think it's a bad year. I mean, you've got the huge blockbuster hits of the summer, like Despicable Me 4 and Inside Out 2, right? Which Inside Out 2 is a brilliant film. It's a really, truly great one. The Wild Robots on there.
Mm.
Um, you've got something like Wallace and Gromit is on there, Vengeance Most Foul. I saw that recently because I got to talk to the guys, and that's that's like it's a Wallace and Gromit film. I mean, what more can you say? It hits everything that it needs to hit. That's so strong. Um, and then you've
Piece by
got
Piece, which is
piece by piece.
documentary
Yeah.
animation. That's a very unique film out there. You've got
Hmm.
The Imaginary. I mean,
The
this is
Imaginary. Yeah.
it's
Ghost Cat Anzu, which is supposed to be very good. Colors Within, incredible.
I
Naoko
w-
Yamada. Chicken for Linda as well.
Chicken
Yeah.
for Linda, Colors Within. I mean, it's just Art College 1994, which is a Chinese independent animated feature. I forget the guy's name,
Mm.
Lu Zhan or something. But he's made a few films before, and he's a great filmmaker. So I haven't seen Art College 1994 yet, but that's I mean
Mm.
these films, there should be a whole. I mean I think you could come up with 5 nominees here that won't be nominated that would deserve to be nominated. And
Yes.
actually,
Yeah.
one I hope to see nominated is The Day the Earth Blew Up. That's like the first
Yes.
ever
Yeah. Yeah.
original Looney Tunes fully animated 2D film, and it is fantastically funny. And it
Mm.
is like like you say about Wallace and Gromit. This hits all the right notes for if you got a Looney Tunes film. What should it be tonally? This film hits all the right notes, and
Mm.
it's such a fantastically funny film that is very respectful of the legacy of these characters and understands
Mm.
these characters. So I mean, that would be amazing to see that nominated.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The
it's just
glass
a
workers in there, didn't even mention it yet, which is quoted by Usman. It is the flea on the belly of the underdog in terms of this race. But he's pushing hard, and it's great to see it on there. And it's a film absolutely worthy of all the praise that it gets. Like, I mean, it's an insanely strong year. Um, I don't even know anything about the Lord of the Rings film, War of the Rohirrim, but again, we've been saying it, the whole way through. Memoir of a Snail is on there. Moana 2 is on there as well. It's just there's a lot going on,
yeah.
you know.
Razul asks, "Is there any good 2D two? I'm not sure what that's in reference. Is that in reference to the Oscar list, or I don't
Well,
know?
you've got The Day the Earth Blew Up there. The Glasswork is fully 2D as well. Any
Art
of the
College
anime film
1994. Look
is that
back.
2D as well. Wow.
Art
Um,
College's Look Back is The
yeah,
Imaginary
Colors Within.
is
Any of the
hmm
anime usually is.
yeah, Mars
Lord of the
Express.
Rings,
Mars
Mars
Express is
Express. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of good 2D this year. So yeah,
Mm.
it's a fantastic year, and I hope people recognize that. I don't know if they. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's been everyone's saying it's not a good year. I'm really confused or out of touch with how people think. I think people look at like the commercial releases and they're like, oh, there was only Inside Out 2 and that was good, and Wild Robot, and they're like, well, that's not a good year. But if you look at the whole list, it's impossible to say this is not a good year, if not
Mm.
great year.
And commercially, they've done incredibly well. You know, Inside Out 2, Despicable Me 4, Moana 2 now. Even the Wild Robot's done very well. Like, you know, it's a very strong year commercially and critically for animation, really, like across the board.
Yeah, very cool. So, on that note, it's a positive note. So let's end it right here before we go negative again. We're gonna be back. So this is a bi-weekly live stream, but we're actually gonna be back next Friday, I believe, because we missed last Friday due to scheduling conflicts. So this is kind of the makeup for last week, but we are also going to be back next Friday, and then that'll be our final episode for a couple weeks. So I hope you guys join us back here again.
The Christmas special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weeks before Christmas. Thank you so much, guys.
Christmas
have a good
spectacular.
Day. Get your Christmas sound effects ready.
Yeah, we're gonna have dancers and everything. So.
In whose apartment? I didn't agree to this.
I know. Well, we'll figure something out. We got 7 days.
Yeah.
So, so Cole, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again in a few days. Thank you.
See you again, guys.